As a father of a 8 week old, it's challenging to be a gamer in today's day and age, with the cost of everything, the time that a lot of games take, and the attention that a kid requires, especially if you're a stay-at-home father. It's challenging. You're lucky if you get an hour or two solid without an interruption, without needing to pick up the kid and give them some sort of attention or change their diaper or feed them or do any of that stuff. And obviously, it gets easier to some degree as they get older, but also they want more of your attention. They want to get more involved. So there's the other aspect. So we had a couple of family members from New Zealand that came down and stayed with us for a little while. And they've got one of Kate's uncles. He's got two boys, very boisterous. They want to play. We're doing the Easter thing as a family. And I've brought over the laptop and we're, playing a couple of games that I picked out. I think it was Boomerang Fu, which was a fun little cooperative as well as a competitive type of game. And it's there's a level of enjoyment and exhaustion that happens when you're playing games with kids because you're always on edge of, especially with two boys, where there's a level of emotional resonance and emotional kind of importance to winning or succeeding or being the better that you need to manage and challenge. And these aren't my kids, but I can see how being a father to a daughter as she gets older, these are some of the things that I will have to deal with, and these are some of the things that a lot of parents have to deal with. But it's nice to see that there are some developers that at least offer some of that split screen experience, because this is one of those things that even the father pointed out when we were playing, when they came over to our place a few days later, and I turned on the PlayStation. We were playing, what is it called? It is one of the older. What is the developer behind Returnal? Ah, no, that's not what I wanted. Returnal. Housemark. It's one of the older Housemark games. Alien Nation, I think it's called. I'll just double check that. Where are you? Alien Nation, yeah. So we were playing Alien Nation. And of course, we're kind of going through, I'm showing them what they need to do, and they're very quickly kind of adapting and getting used to their characters and whatnot, just so people have an idea of what I'm talking about. Alienation. And they're very much focused on doing their own things and kind of playing the game the way they want to play. And I'm trying to guide them towards the objective, which is challenging. They're kind of in that 8 to 12 pocket, and they're just very focused on what they want to do and where they want to go, and they're not necessarily too focused on what they need to be doing from an objective standpoint or looking at the map the way I am. So I'm trying to guide them and trying to, have them focus on what they need to do in order to get the missions completed and move on. But, they're kids. They're going to experiment. They're going to do their own thing. And there is also the competitive nature between the two brothers as well. So it can be very exhausting when you're kind of having to give up your own time to essentially, let these kids kind of, bond with you or bond with each other in this kind of experience. But what the father kind of interestingly pointed out was the fact that, oh, why don't you play, these kinds of games with your brother? Oh, no, because most of our games we just play single player. Well, yeah, of course. Because when you're playing Battlefield 2142, which these kids are, not judging the father, that's their choice to, that's his choice to obviously give him that type of game. Great, wonderful. That shows a lot of responsibility as a dad. Some people probably might frown upon that at that age they're playing that kind of war-driven game. No, it doesn't matter. These kids are really well behaved and like really respective to their peers and surrounding, and I think that just comes down to good parenting, while also letting them have enough freedom to just be kids in the right space. But what I found interesting is the fact that we have so many of these games now, and a lot of them are kind of focused and predicated on, well, you need a secondary console and you need a second subscription, typically, like if it's in the PlayStation side or Xbox side, in order to play a lot of these games online. Whereas a lot of these like smaller games that I had with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was one of them that we played. There was what did I say, Boomerang Fu as well. We did Rayman, but that was kind of difficult. I must admit, Rayman as a side-scroller with a bunch of kids trying to side-scroll through levels gets super chaotic. I think Mario probably does this a bit better, and I think it's mainly due to the fact that none of the characters are capable of bashing each other. I think that added mechanic of being able to hit your friends, though it's cool and cute to begin with, gets really freaking old. And when, again, you are playing with kids that are just kind of going, cool, I can just keep smacking you again and again and again. Isn't that awesome? And it's like, yeah, but we are like dying here and with the levels moving this way. So side scroller is a little bit more difficult, but it's fascinating to see that level of enjoyment playing together, playing these kinds of games on a single screen in almost a board game like sense. And I just want to like point out the fact that there are, even to this day, where we've got more games that are kind of, even if they are focused on a multiplayer aspect, again, requiring 2 copies of a game typically, and needing, a second or a third console if you're wanting to play with, your other siblings, which can get really expensive in today's economy at the same time. I just want to point out that when you've got games like, what have I been playing recently that I just picked up on sale right now? Lords of the Fallen. So this recently been patched
Lords of the Fallen is
providing a
bosses will remain defeated. 0.0 also introduces the Lords of the Fallen Free Friends Pass. As of today, anyone who doesn't currently own the game can now create a character and explore the entire tutorial area.
Now, I find that as a developer, to give a free Friends Pass that you can basically just invite a friend into your game for the one whole price. So all you need to make sure is, okay, well, you need 2 PCs. That's kind of an unfortunate reality and circumstance, but okay, it is what it is. But the fact that you go out of your way to go, okay, we want people to play together, and this is such a good way to do it. And if the other person happens to have the money, or you want to, like for a family, like a kid, this is perfect. This is fantastic. This is exactly what you want to encourage. And we've seen the same Friends Pass with It Takes Two. We've seen it with their newest games that the same developers did. Split Fiction, sorry. What is the developer's name? God damn it, Hazelight Studios. This kind of stuff is really just empowering for me, and I love seeing the developers, especially indie developers, just push this, and even some of the bigger AA's or AAA developers, just pushing that ability to kind of go, can we make a game on today's systems that still just look phenomenal and play phenomenal, and incorporate a level of cooperativeness where you don't need another system. You, as a parent, you or a family, you don't need to like spend another $700-800, at least here in Australia, where the cost of a PlayStation 5 has gone up due to the tariffs in the States. Even a lot of our games right now are going up in price. Like, I think about the fact that as a father going forward, this game for $70 is well worth the value. Well worth the value. The story is amazing. The fact that I can play this with my daughter or with another kid in general, and I don't need another system. I can load this up on the PC. I can load this up on the PlayStation. I don't need a subscription to enjoy this. And you do technically have the replayability if you want to suddenly switch characters. I think another good example of this. What is. Damn it. I'm just going to change for a second. Because I did download Nicoderico. That's what it's called. All right. So, Nico. So I think this is like another one of those games that very similar kind of feel. It is a platformer. It's very much like when you look at this game, it is very much a what's it called? Donkey Kong like game with moments of Crash Bandicoot, surprisingly, which is really cool. But I think the added bonus of having a second player. Now, I haven't actually seen what the second player side of it looks like. But just the fact that a developer goes out of their way to even add a second player feature, I think is awesome. I think it's just really rewarding. I think it's really thoughtful and consumer friendly. And I think this is the kind of stuff that I think is going to be, going forward, beneficial, I think, for developers to kind of focus on how can we get, if we have kids that or families that are looking at spending as little as they possibly can because the cost of living has gone through the roof and these games are expensive, and I get they're expensive to make, they're not necessarily going to go out of their way and spend money on a single, like, spend. I'm getting distracted here because this game is just so beautiful. They're not going to go, most parents are probably not going to go out of their way to buy 2 PlayStations. If they've got the money, they probably will. And to then have to cough out for 2 copies of this type of game, as opposed to buying 1 copy and getting both kids to play, or, you know, your partner, your like yourself, if you're playing with a kid, it just makes it more involving. It means that the 2 of you can go through it together. You can both enjoy it and get a kick out of it. And I think these kinds of systems and this type of development is going to be so, I think, additive to the product, especially at this price point. Like, this is a $48 game here in Australia, which I'm sure in the States it's probably about 30. But there's a lot of play here for the type of game for a platformer, and it's on PC as well. Like, it's that type of, it's the reason why Nintendo is so successful. The fact that they've got this kind of ability to go, yes, it's a single player game, but we're also offering like a cooperative experience, especially if we're, say, having a parent get involved. I think all of that just goes a long way in providing value to a consumer. Because, like, we've gotten, and again, coming back to this point of, you know, the difficulty of being a father now, wanting time to play video games. We've gotten a bunch of new games that have just come out. Now, on the side, I'm playing forgive my brain fog here. The PlayStation, well, it's not PlayStation exclusive anymore. Death Stranding. I've started Death Stranding because the sequel's coming out, and I am looking at getting a capture card so I can probably do some streaming for it. But that is a game I'm looking forward to for myself as a big budget Sony production, or, well, Kojima, but it's under the Sony banner. The only other big game that Sony obviously has announced is Ghost of Yotei. And when we're looking at the cost of these games now being basically close to $120. So I've already been kind of looking at a lot of these like Xbox games that are coming out. And you look at something like Doom, for instance, where on Steam, at least here in Australia, it's $119.95. That's close to, well, it's just over 2 tanks of gas for me. That is, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's probably going to be hours of content there compared to, say going and seeing a 2-hour show at a comedy club or something of that nature. That's just what it is. That's the cost of development. But when I'm having to decide between spending what I honestly will think is anywhere between 15 to 20 hours, where it's going to be a single run through for someone like myself, $120 for Doom versus, well, let's have a look at what just recently came out. There was Elder Scrolls 4. Now, that's $84.95 for a remaster. It's a remaster. Sure. We're playing the exact same game that we played God knows how many years ago. But there is still many, many, many hours of value and replayability in a game like that. Or I'm realistically going to be looking at Clair Obscur. Because even at its full price, without the discount that is currently available at $62.95, which is 10% off, it's still a $70 game. And cinematically, gameplay-wise, I think there is a lot of value in this type of product. Now, there's a couple of factors to this. I think this is probably a smaller studio. They are probably not spending anywhere near the same amount of money in their country to develop this kind of game versus what ID in the Bethesda team is spending in America. That's just the reality of Western development. This is why we are seeing a lot of games, especially with the Japanese market, having a lot of success because it's obviously much cheaper now with the cost of living there, but the way the conversion rate obviously works is very different. We're seeing a lot of this high quality success in the Chinese market and a lot of these other countries compared to the Western developers. So they are struggling. And I think this is where Europe, even though it's expensive in parts of Europe, it's still cheaper to develop a game than what it probably is in the States. And I think we are going to see how well these Western developers, especially in America, are actually going to succeed in their video games going forward. If they are charging $120, at least here in Australia, you guys in America, it's $80. If you're fine with that, awesome, wonderful. If you've got the money, great. You're going to support it. Like anyone who's got the funds, who enjoys playing video games, you're going to spend the money. But I must admit, it is becoming more tempting to look at smaller indie titles like Tempest Rising, strategy game. This is $52.95 here. That's half the price, and there's a lot of game in this. Does it have the same value or the same kind of production value? No, I can't disagree that I look at something like Doom and it's probably going to have a higher production value. There's a lot more development chops and a lot more accessibility features that they're putting into something like Doom that you're not going to get most likely in Tempest Rising. And they're also two very different genres. But I think there is something to be said about people just being a bit more wiser with their spending. And, everyone's talking about the fact that GTA around the corner is coming and it's going to cost at least, $90. Some people might even assume it's 100. Okay, well, if it's 100 there, it's probably closer to 130 or 150 here. It's not something I want, but I must admit, I'm not going to spend 150, but I will happily spend 120 on something like GTA. When you look at it as a whole package, as a piece of art, as a product, I think there is so much development, time, care put into it to give the players everything that they, and this is all theoretical. We don't know. It might be shit. It's unlikely, but it might be. It's possible. What we get typically from this developer is high quality. It's like looking at most Nintendo games and going, well, the new Donkey Kong game is going to be really poor and it's going to be buggy and it's not going to have a lot of content, and this new Mario game is just going to fall apart at the seams. No, that's not how this works. You look at the success rate of Nintendo and it's always been really top-notch quality. Occasionally they hit, they miss the bar. But for the most part, a lot of their core team is just top-notch. And I think what Take-Two is offering, or what Rockstar is offering with the next GTA, I think for the price that they're going to be asking, it's not going to be a hard sell. What's sad, or what will be sad, is seeing a whole bunch of other developers, whether it's EA, whether it's certain developers from Microsoft or even Sony, who will turn around and assume that, well, if they can sell their game for 100, say it's $130 here, $90 or $100 in the States, we can sell ours at the same price. Why not? We put the same effort. We've got the same costs of development. No, I'm sorry, you don't. You do not have the same costs. You spend those costs in a very flippant way, and I don't think you put in the same quality and offer the same variety. I look at Zelda, for instance, and go, that, even though it's missing a deeper story for me, I cannot deny that the last two Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, are phenomenally designed games. And I look at that and I compare it to something like GTA and I go, these are two really solid products that not just offer really good quality design, but a lot of flexibility and freedom within that design. And it's to sit there and be any other developer and go, well, we can sell ours because it looks similar. Yeah, okay, on the surface. I'm sure if, you buy a really shitty car that's falling apart and you paint it brand new and look at that schmick looking car. It's brand new paint. It's wonderful. Please give me full price for that brand new car. Because you put a really nice coat of paint, but like everything under the hood is fucking horrible. No, I'm sorry. It's not how that works. And I hope that consumers will have the strength to look at the IPs that they have associated and fallen in love with so much and actually look at them realistically and go, is this really worth full price? Do we feel so? If we're going forward and we're looking in the next 2 or 3 years, and we're looking at the next Blade game, everyone is excited for the next Blade game made by the team that made Dishonored. When it comes out and it's being handed to you for 80, $90 American, can we really say that that is the same value for that price compared to what you had just probably previously played with a Zelda or a Rockstar product? And really think about your hard-earned money and whether it's worth that initial investment. Because these developers, there's a lot of work and a lot of heart that goes into it. But when I think about the fact that we've had a handful of games in the last 6 to 12 months from big publishers that have come out looking really high budget. We've seen Dragon Age. We've seen, I know people are enjoying it, but even Avowed, where these games look really high budget, they look really polished, but when you play them, there is a shallow level of development where you do not get the same level of depth that you would in some of these other previous titles. Like, I don't know what it's going to be like, but even FromSoft right now, I'm kind of wondering whether the way they're developing some of their multiplayer games, depending on the cost of the games, of course, like if they're going to start selling them at full price, I sure as hell hope that it's going to be at the quality and the depth of an Elden Ring, because if it's anything less than that and it's just a multiplayer game, I am paying full price for that. But if you want to, because you're an avid fan, go nuts. But just maybe consider the fact that your hard-earned money is being put towards the psychological understanding for the developer that that is the minimum that they need to deliver for you. And when I'm seeing certain developers sit there and say, well, making a game like Baldur's Gate 3, that's none of us can do that. I'm sorry, that's a load of bullshit. You could easily do that if you bothered to spend the time and spend the correct amount of resources, and if you can find the right developers for it. But are you actually encouraging your developers to offer that level of depth? Are you giving them that freedom? Are you giving them the correct budget? Are you managing them to kind of go, can you make a fun game without all the other excess, like fancy fucking accessories and pretty colors and wonderful graphics and beautiful light systems? Can you just make a really fun game that has a lot of breadth, a lot of depth? And then, once we know that there's a lot of depth in this, how much more can we add just to inflate that budget a bit more? To kind of go, let's pretty it up a little. Let's give it some style. Let's give it some flair. Without going, let's just make it shiny chrome and sell you a really fancy looking car that can't drive for shit or is wasting fuel. This analogy is just going all over the shop. My point is, we are going through some hard times as a society. And we have limited funds and limited time. And I think your time is valuable to you and should be valuable. I know a lot of people probably get frustrated with certain developers or certain games not running or doing a certain thing. Okay, there are many reasons for that. Maybe we've got too much content and we don't know how to kind of mentally parse all of that. But I think it's also a good opportunity to kind of take a step back and go, well, you don't need to be buying these things day one. Maybe take a step back and kind of go, maybe my money is better spent and waiting and either going outside and doing something different just to kind of get a bit of a change in your life, get some sort of a refresher away from the gaming. But maybe it's better spent on something either older that is new and redone and that you know you're going to get hours upon hours of content again and kind of go through that experience again. Or maybe it's better spent on something that is a little bit more unknown and is on a cheaper spectrum. And if it's not your style of game, that's fine. I guarantee you there's probably something there that you haven't even considered, or even go into your back catalog and have a look at some of that new stuff. Don't worry about the new games. In fact, there's so many games. Like I said, I've started Lords of the Fallen, currently on sale at $30, and it's fully patched. And I think for all the time that I've spent waiting, it's worth the wait sometimes to just let the developer, if they care about the game, to give you the best quality product before you embark and before you even spend your, not just your money, but your hard-earned time, whatever time that you get given. You know, going back to me being a parent, I am very limited in my time. I actually don't know what I'll do when I hit 50. That'll be an interesting question. But let me just finish this point. It's when you're having to spend whatever little time you have for yourself, and you again have limited funds because you're needing to worry about all the important costs that, you know, go into living your life. Really think about that purchase. Really think about, is the game that I'm buying going to give me the long-term satisfaction? It's why I understand why so many people go into freemium type games, because there is so much constant updates and content that they're offering you, as well as the cooperative nature of a lot of these games. But I don't necessarily think that they give you the same value as what these types of full experiences can offer you, even if you're playing them with friends. And I think some developers know how to budget themselves correctly to sell a product at the right price and give you the reliability and the peace of mind knowing that they're going to be there supporting this game long term. So even like No Rest for the Wicked, which is bringing out a new update soon, for anyone who would like to know. They've got a update for their game coming out. I think it's April 30th. Yeah, April 30th. And I listened to the developer behind this, and provided that we support them and they've got enough funds going into the game, like for $60, I have more faith in this developer respecting my time, respecting the money that I give them to make a well-developed, fully fleshed out game, compared to something like Diablo, where most of the stuff that they're going to give you is going to be seasonal content that they're going to expect you to just replay the game again and re-roll a new character. They're not adding anything. They're adding things that look really amazing but might not necessarily give you the same level of play. This is even my concern with marathon where people are going to jump in, pay $50, $60 for this multiplayer game, and you're going to be waiting for that content, and they're going to be hitting you with very minimalistic amount of content for that price. Now, if you feel like you're going to get a lot of hours into something like Marathon because you like that style of game, I know a lot of people play Hunt Showdown, I know a lot of people play Tarkov, then yeah, wonderful. Spend the money, invest, and support the developer, because I think there's a lot of these hardworking artists that spend a lot of their years working on these games, and I think it's worth giving them the money if they are truly giving back at the same time. It's hard to see certain games that kind of, you can feel that they are so close, but maybe something goes wrong in the development side of things where it doesn't quite hit the end mark. But yet, because the publisher feels, well, they need their money back on the investment that they initially put in, they are going to charge full price for this product, and they expect you as a consumer to pay that full price because they put a lot of hard-earned money into those developers and expected them to deliver in that Dragon Age game. And we don't really get the Dragon Age that we wanted, that we expected, that we got years ago from a much smaller team who were far more passionate and didn't necessarily have the tools. And I think this is what's also so fascinating. Sometimes the smaller teams who are working with what they've got, the little bits of scraps, can make something far more unique and far more impressive, and can sell it to you for a far more affordable price, and then also give you more for what you're giving them. I mean, we see this with No Man's Sky. This is a developer that is still like, and this is a fully priced game. It's currently, I mean, I've gotten this on sale many times, but it's priced at $87.95. That's not a small feat. But on top of the constant updating that they've done, for no extra charge, no extra money's asked, but they still do it because they fucking care. They care about you as a consumer. And I think going forward, think about what you're spending on your product, and do you feel that the developers are considering you as a consumer and what you want from this product?